Guys, we are back after a week. It's been another week of different things happening at Barcelona, Dev.
So international friendlies will start again. That's always a concern because we're worried about which players will get injured or not. We are also expecting a bunch of people coming back after break, which is we are expecting Daniel Olmo to be there. We are expecting Gavi to come back. And there are really exciting, important games that are coming up that can quite define the season for Flick early on.
Let's start with the first one, which is the next game. It could be a trap game. It's Alaves. On paper, we should be winning that game, of course. And if you do win that game, you head into the break with almost a perfect record, ahead of the Real Madrid, ahead of Bayern game. This momentum is so key there because we've been on a great run, right? And our players feel good. They're all united. They're all highly motivated to keep this going. And yes, this Suna game was a miss, but the team has been able to shake that off, win against young boys, and now we have to win against Alaves as well. And then you go into the break and you actually feel confident about it. Hopefully, no injuries happen during the break. Hopefully, our players actually come back and can return in the best shape for Bayern, for Real Madrid. But this game in particular, doesn't feel like a huge game, but at the same time, it's a must-win one.
And Mendorosa has never been easy for Barcelona. It's an away game. Alaves will work in a block, and it won't be that easy. The players did look quite tired in the last 2 or 3 games, so I don't think that freshness will be there. So there are some challenges that we need to think about. And the last 2 games have been a bit ragged because of injuries, minutes on their legs, tiredness, what have you. And Flick won't have the opportunity of wholesale changes to the lineup after what happened with Osasuna. So he's going to try and win this one and stick to the formation because I think he would like to take this lead into the Clásico after the break. So I don't think he's going to play around a lot with formations and lineups. So I think it's the so-called Gala third choice, but the only choice available 11 that we have that is going to play in Alaves. If you remember last year, Omar Dion was still playing for them, right? Jong? Yeah. So if you remember the game, we struggled with them. And mostly it was for Samu, agreed. But if you remember how many times they got caught in the counter, Kunde got caught, I think Gundogan got caught. It wasn't an easy game at all with Alaves last season. So I don't think it'll be easy this time as well. But yeah, the coaches have changed, the playing philosophy has changed. So I think we can still get away with a win. And hopefully we do, because otherwise the advantage that we have against Madrid till now, because of the draw last week, that'll possibly go away. And it's always better to get into a Clásico with some sort of an advantage. So I think that'll be good. But that's my initial thought.
I feel like all these teams, so to speak, lower tier teams and mid-table teams, they all know that they will get under an immense pressure from Barcelona, but they know how to tackle that. So if Barca can't play their own game, if Barca can't really plug these holes early and quickly and then overwhelm with their attacking quality, then that's where the opposition comes in and they say, okay, we'll exploit your high line, we'll exploit the space that you leave behind your fullbacks, and they will all follow the same script, essentially. So how does Flick tackle that? I think it just, as you said, there's not much wiggle room here because he doesn't really have many options to fully rotate or to create different systems to tackle these teams. It will be the same thing. It will be playing the way that we have been playing all the season. And then we'll just hope that we can overwhelm them in their attacking quality. And that way we put the game to bed early and then we can be calmer in the rest of the game.
I think they lost to Real Madrid and they lost to Getafe. Like
right.
Those 2 games they lost. Others were draws or wins. They haven't really lost at home yet. That doesn't mean that they won't, but they yet. My question was in the Real Madrid game, they did score 2 goals, but that game showed us that this team can attack. In Stoichkov and Tony Martinez, they don't have Samu, but they do have players who can play on the counter, who can attack. Do you think there is something that we need to be worried about, given our high line and the challenges we've already seen?
Everyone knows what this Barca's weakness is. This high line, yes, of course, it's inherent to how Flick wants to play. It's always going to be there, no matter what. And that's fine. That's okay from a philosophy perspective because these players know what to do and they're fully committed to doing it. And as long as that works, absolutely fantastic. But these teams know, okay, they will pin us down. They will come with wave and wave of attacks. However, they also know Barca are always going to be vulnerable in this one area or 2 areas of the pitch, and they will play to that. Yeah, Real, Masia exploited, Monaco, Masia exploited, although Monaco had a man advantage, so that's that. But even athletic clubs exploited, and teams know, they know what to aim for. They know what their victory plan is or victory conditions are, and they will play to that. And all of these mid to lower tier teams in La Liga will play that way because they can't outscore Barcelona. They won't play an open game. They will play a close game with a couple of chances here and there, but chances that will likely follow the same script. Okay, so let's go further with the Jong and Fati back. In your initial thoughts, I know it was more of a cameo appearance from both of them. It was a game that was already put to bed against Young Boys. The Young had some game time, Fati had some game time. They did look lively, but at the same time, they did look a bit off.
You can't expect them to hit the ground running after not playing for 6 months or 7 months or what have you. Expectations in check. That said, it was a patchy performance from both. Now, De Jong, there is no question when he is playing at the level that he plays, he will be of immense value to Flick, especially for the way Flick plays. There's no question on that. Will that be tomorrow? I have doubts in that sense. I think he'll still need a few weeks of playing full tilt in those practice matches and training to get to that level of confidence and his positioning and how it's used and so on. De Jong remains an enigmatic figure. There is no guarantee that De Jong is going to stay. If you look at the signals, everything points out that he wants to leave the next season. And if that happens, what does that mean for us? For the longest time, it meant many things. But with Casado coming in, with Bernal is obviously he's out in ACL right now, but he'll come back. Is it going to be that much of a miss per se in the long run? Or are we already balanced out in the eventuality that it happens?
When you look at this team, even though it doesn't have De Jong's high individual quality, because when you compare it player to player, De Jong is still a better player than Casado is. As much as I love Casado, De Jong is better. Now, De Jong is obviously much better than having Rafinha in the middle as well. Now, is De Jong better than having Gavi in the middle? That's also questionable because we don't know. And we also don't know what kind of a player De Jong is going to be under Flick. We have not seen his role under Flick. Is Flick going to completely restructure De Jong's role in this Barca team? Is he going to nullify some of his flaws that he has? Is he going to put his best attributes up front, so under the spotlight, because that's what good coaches do? If that happens, and you finally get this De Jong that we've been dreaming of for years, then absolutely, then losing that play would be a huge thing for Barcelona. But we simply don't know yet what De Jong will be or how much of an asset he will be for Flick. Is he going to be some revolutionary piece that takes the team to the next level? It's possible. I think it's possible just purely down to his quality. But then again, how fit is De Jong going to be? How big of an issue is this ankle going to be? Is Flick going to minimize his ball carrying? Because that's what you would need from De Jong in this Flick setup. Because as we know, what De Jong likes to do, he likes to drop it to the back line and carry the ball forward. Is this going to fly under Flick? I don't really think so. Or it shouldn't, because that slows down your first phase, because the ball is always faster than the player, right? And De Jong likes to run. He doesn't like to, he can pass, but he likes to run a bit more. So in that sense, your buildup will be that much slower for it. And Flick, as we now know, so all the tactics that we've done, all the analysis that we've done, the buildup needs to be highly vertical and highly fast paced. It has to be quick. It has to be quick. That's Flick's rule that must not be broken in the buildup, because as soon as it's broken and the backline cannot progress efficiently, the whole structure falls apart. Now, if De Jong drops into the back line and kind of compromises that aspect, that fundamental cornerstone of Flick's philosophy, it might be a problem. So from that perspective, if De Jong cannot be taught or molded into a slightly different role under Flick, then shipping him and getting rid of him, however you want to say it, could be beneficial. But then again, he gave that interview recently, right, where he talked about loving Barca, still being in all of Camp Nou and the training grounds and Flick and yada. That's all the things that you're meant to say from the cameras. I still feel like he's slightly closer to leaving than staying. That would be my gut feeling.
I think players who make their mark at a club, they make it within the first 5 years. And
Right.
I'm not saying De Jong hasn't, but he has never reached that potential. It's always, here's a potential and here's Jong. That's what has happened consistently. He's a great player. And I think right now in the Premier League, there are really good teams where he can be an asset. Like De Jong can be an asset in Arsenal. De Jong can be an asset at Manchester City. And those teams are actually looking for players like De Jong right now. Maybe a fresh start will do him good as well. He's a good player, no questions on that. But he just came to Barcelona at the worst possible time. Obviously, he didn't know that this would happen. He came with the dream of playing with Messi and all of that stuff, which is what everybody did. And then he got caught up in this and just so he'll feel a little hard done by what he thought would happen and what actually happened. That said, if he does well this season and plays amazingly well, one never knows. You don't when do interviews with Barca if Barca does not want you to give that interview. So they controlled that messaging, they created that, and there was no need for doing that if they wanted to get rid of him immediately. So hard to say what's happening. It connects us to another player who is like De Jong in that sense from where his career is, and it's Ansu Fati. So poor guy, we have gone through a full roller coaster with him. And last season he went to Brighton, came back. This season, before the season started, it was pretty much everybody was saying that he would be sold. Some people said that he's going to Sevilla. Some people said somewhere else, whatever. But ultimately, we saw that he's staying. And then we had very good positive reviews from Flick about Ansu Fati in training. Super excited. And then nothing. Flick says he's awesome, but he never really give him the opportunity to play when there was lots of opportunities to play. Like we literally had nobody playing, and still Flick did not give him that opportunity. And suddenly, a couple of days back, you have seen those reports where they're saying that by January, they're looking to ship him off for a loan. And if that's the case, I think that's pretty much curtains for Fati.
Yeah, that will be the case, unfortunately. It's this situation where we love the player so much. He's a La Masia kid. He was very unfortunate with the injuries, and we all want him to succeed so much. You see a little brink of hope, and you hold on to it so tight. You're like, okay, maybe this is a chance. Maybe this is a sign he'll play. Maybe this is actually the time that he recovers and he plays and he becomes the player that we all want him to become. But with every passing week, every passing game, that chance gets smaller and smaller. So I don't know what to think anymore because I do trust Flick when he says, "Oh, I'm so impressed by Fati." I really trusted him when he said those things, but then he never backed it up with actually actions and actually giving Fati the time. Because if that player is so impressive in training, it would be common sense to use him a bit more. So there's a disconnect between the statement and what's actually happening on the pitch. So that kind of worries me. So maybe in a way, as you said, maybe Barca are telling Flick, okay, you send this message out to the fans. You tell them you maybe put their minds to ease because they are worried about Fati and also so on and so forth. But I just don't know. At this point, it's very tricky because, as you said, there were numerous chances where Barca needed someone off the bench, and that someone could have been Fati. But if he's not the player the Barca need as a game changer off the bench, then we have a problem.
It has never been more evident to me than this game. A couple of games back, I think it's minute 80 and the cameras are showing that Fati is supposed to come out, correct? And then we see Hector Ford going in at the 85th minute with Barca leading with 5 goals or 4 goals or something like that. If at that moment also Hansi Flick cannot trust him to go and play when the game is dead, like the rubber is absolutely sealed, nobody's going to win it except Barca, that worries me. Now, why? I don't want to go into conspiracy theories. I don't know what will happen. Maybe with Alaves he will play, maybe not really sure. But I hope that he get a chance.
Unfortunately, that may be true. We'll see. We still hold on to hope, even when there is very little of it. But we'll see. As I said, this is all a confidence thing, and he's not match sharp. He's not match ready. But that also comes from not playing at all. So
Right.
it's a vicious circle. You don't play, so when you do play a little bit, you look off. So you don't play. You don't play. It's a circle.
It's a cycle. It's a cycle.
Yeah.
The coach has to give you that confidence that don't worry about it. You go play there, right? I'll back until you get that form. All right, let's do young boys.
Yeah, I think that's a good transition because Fati did play against young boys and he was okay, but not really. There was nothing to play for at that point. When he came on, the game was put to bed already a long time ago. So he was like there to just get game time to appease the fans or his own mentality or his own game mind state. So I feel like that's the only thing to come out of that. But in general, that was Barca's first win in the Champions League this season. It wasn't against a big opponent. Okay, granted, that's all true, but it was a win that we needed nonetheless, right? We came off of a loss against Osasuna. We already had one defeat in the Champions League. We needed this win, and we needed it to be big, and it was big, and we're finally on the board. And now the serious business is about to start.
No, and I was just watching Aston Villa against Bayern, and I hadn't thought that game would end that way. But looking at that result, there are two things that came out, like what a goalkeeper like Emi Martinez can do,
Yeah.
because otherwise Bayern wins that game. As simple as that. If you stick
Mhm.
to your game plan and you execute ruthlessly, it is possible to win against this Bayern. The young boys thing, as you rightly pointed out, like it was not a big team per se, but I think some things I like. The first goal, just the passing sequence was so gorgeous. I think the first three goals were really nice, according to me, in the way they played and then the way they executed that. Second half was just like passing minutes and time. I think that by that time, everybody is like shut shop for the day. But as you said, it's just good to get points on the board. In this format, I think the goal difference can matter massively. So the fact that we scored so many will help us to a large extent. I still think we can make it either through playoffs or whatever into round of 16. If we can do round of 16, we are good. I think I don't have any other expectation from Barca.
There are easy games on paper in the Champions League, but in reality, they can turn to something completely different. Young Boys was Young Boys. We had a huge win and all that. But two teams that are very much linked to Barcelona, connected to Barcelona through La Liga, are Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. And both of those teams suffered in the Champions League as well. And then they also had the Madrid derby, which ended favorably for Barcelona because it was a draw. It feels like Atleti in particular have been struggling because their summer was, on paper, okay, they had the reinforcements, they spent some money, but the team is just not clicking at this moment. So if there's Barca's chance to actually create some distance between those teams, we head into the El Clasico as well with Madrid not potentially being at their best either. So this is truly Barca's chance to create the distance and actually take advantage of these teams not being on the level that we would maybe expect them to be there.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. And we have gone through this. Imagine the number of transfer windows where we have spent millions of dollars and got nothing in return. Compared to that, the one that we did on that Liverpooling transfer window that we did, think of the players, Lewandowski, Kunde, Rafinha. These players actually have become the backbone of the team. That was one of the probably one of the best transfer windows we've had in the longest time. If you look at return per player based on the investment that has been done compared to all the big transfer windows that we have done before. That was an insane transfer window, right? And that goes to show that you can plan so much and then you can pick up the players that you want. And still, who would think Julian Alvarez won't be a fit? Who would think Athletic really spruced up their squad? Like I
Mm.
genuinely thought that they would be hard, very hard. It just goes to show that with new players, it takes time for the player combination to work out, for the team to figure out how it wants to play, not just what the coach wants to do. Like last year, I think Jose Lu, nobody paid attention to him, but he was so critical for Madrid being that clinical throughout. He was the perfect piece. It allowed Bellingham to be Bellingham. It allowed Vinicius to be Vinicius, and he could always come in when there was a problem, be the nine, be a presence on the box and score that opportunity goal here and there. And Madrid had a phenomenal season. It just goes to show that you cannot think of it's just not like chess, right? The way players combine with each other and work with each other, but there's no doubt that they're struggling at this moment to figure out what's the best way to play. Same thing with Atleti. I think they've got all these new players and fancy players, but Simeone being like he's used to playing in a particular manner, and that's just not happening at this moment. Maybe Atleti
Yes.
did what Bartomeu did in
Yeah.
2017 for Barcelona.
It's very difficult, like judging transfers from the highest levels. When you look at the number of actually successful transfers with all the big clubs, not just Barcelona, all the clubs in Europe, it's very low because it's not just a player fit. Okay, we talk about profiles a lot on this channel, and it's true. The right profile goes a long way, right? Because it's better to buy a player that's quote unquote worse, but the better fit than a better player but a worse fit. That said, there's so much more that goes into a successful transfer. The mentality, the culture of the club, language, all of that, all of the personality of the player, all of that plays a big part. Maybe these transfers for Atleti, they do come through in the end. Maybe the team starts gelling better. Maybe they adapt better and so on and so forth. But it just shows you that it's not as straightforward as you would think, not as easy as it is on Football Manager or FIFA, whatever it is, in video games. So it's tough, but for us, we'll just hopefully take advantage of it and run away with a lead that, by Christmas time gets big enough so you can maybe relax a bit more. But yeah, that's why the Clasico is so crucial as well. And that's why I keep, thinking about the Osasuna loss as well, because we could have had more peace of mind going to Christmas. We could have had more. It is what it is. No point in dwelling upon it because we can't change anything at this point. But one thing Barca are doing better than this year, or have been doing better than Atletico and Real Madrid, is just incorporating these youngsters. And you mentioned that at the beginning of the show. Barca just keep churning out these youngsters. And the thing is, not all of them will make it. That you have to consider that, guys. We have so many high potential youngsters. La Masia is wonderful. But statistically, there is just no chance that all of those players become these first team players that take Barca to the next level. It's just not going to happen. Some of those players will have to be happy with the squad role. Some of them will have to go on loan. Some of them will have to be sold. It's just the way football works, because Barca as a brand, Barca as a club are so big that we shouldn't be in a position where every player can play for us. Not every player can play for Barca. That's number one. Number two, not every player should be playing for Barcelona. So I think there's that to consider. It's nice seeing these youngsters prop up, and it's nice seeing give them chances in games, but not all of them will be elite levels, and we have to get ready for that.
I think this is right now what they're doing is a little bit of PR to compensate for the bad PR over the last few years, because this is an easy win. This is an easy story to play in media, and that's why they're overdoing it right now, so that some of the negativity gets lost. And because Flick is managing to get the result, so they're just taking advantage of that. That's basically what is happening. Like, I still remember Alenia. I still remember so many of those players, right? The club understands which ones to let go and which ones to keep. I'm pretty sure that a lot of these players who are now getting promotion because of the state the team is in, injuries, no funds, what have you. If some of them are lucky, they will take this opportunity by both their hands, work their socks off, and make it permanent, because they are so much more luckier than a whole generation of La Masia kids who came between 2005 and 2020, the years Messi was there. Because Messi, Iniesta, and all that core was there, nobody got a chance. Like, these players were starting every single game and they had to leave. And right now, these kids have such a big opportunity in front of them to make their career, to actually prove themselves, and then they're getting chances. So hopefully some of them make it happen. We're all hearing about new ones, even 14-year-olds, 12-year-olds that they're hearing about right now. It'll continue going. But for sure, a lot of these people, if 5 to 10% of them stay, and big names, are they more than happy based on what we have seen?
Yes, absolutely. It's just, for us, it's nice to see, obviously. And as I said, it's nice PR. It always is, because Barca are all about La Masia. It's always been La Masia and always will be La Masia. But to expect every single La Masia graduate to be the next Messi, Iniesta, Xavi, Busquets, it's just not healthy for us. It's not healthy for them either, because all the pressure and all that. But you are right, though, Dev. You're right. This is the golden opportunity for them, the golden ticket to go into the first team, when there are no funds to actually go out and buy better players than what we have in La Masia. Now is the time for them to actually step up and say, okay, look at me. I have the ability right now. Play me, and I will, make it worth your while.
If Messi, Dembele had stayed, where would be Lamine?
Yeah, I know. It would be difficult even for Lamine to break into the team. And now people will say, oh, look at Lamine. He's so much better than Dembele. Yeah, okay. You can argue that he is a much better fit for this Barca than Dembele ever was. And that would be true. But at the same time, who would play and give a 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid a chance ahead of Ousmane Dembele when you have Ousmane already ready to play? So it's a tricky situation. You don't know before you try it, but you won't try it, because who would? It's not, especially for a club like Barca that needs results immediately. It's
very lucky. Like Marc Casado, Hector Fort, Marc Bernard, they're all great players. I'm not questioning, but they're also extremely lucky that they are in this position when they are.
Yeah, I agree completely. I was going to say completely agree. I said compris. Okay. Anyway, I think this is a good way to end the episode, Dev, on a bit of positivity, as we normally try and do, guys. This was our podcast. You'll find us Spotify, on YouTube as well. We'll also write a newsletter to send to your inboxes if you do subscribe to our channels. And so please have a look at that. Have a look at the blog and YouTube. Have a look at the Spotify and Twitter as well. We will be very busy in the weeks to come as Barca head into the crunch time. We will have a lot of great content coming your way, guys. We'll have previews for all those games. We'll have guests that will hopefully bring a different flavor to the episodes as well. So stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, stay safe. Visca el Barça.